Welcome back, everybody, to another breakout session today here at the South Dakota Local Foods Conference. And right now, it is my pleasure to introduce Brooke Wier. And first, a little about her. Brooke Wier serves Butte, Lawrence, and Hardin counties as a farm loan officer for the Farm Service Agency. She started her career with FSA after graduating from South Dakota State University in 2016 with a degree in animal science and minor in ag business. Growing up, she was active in her family's commercial cattle and small grain operation near Bowman, North Dakota, where she found her love for agriculture. She enjoys working alongside farmers and ranchers to better their operations through the programs FSA has to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, the effervescent Brooke Wier.
Do you have no PowerPoint? Okay, they lost my PowerPoint, so I'm just gonna start off explaining myself. Like he said, my name is Brooke Wier. I serve the Butte, Lawrence, Hardin, and Perkins counties. I forgot to add Perkins on my bio, but sorry if you're from Perkins County. I started with FSA in 2016. I was training in the Martin office, so Martin, South Dakota, and then I moved to Miles City, Montana, was there for 3 years, and then came back to South Dakota, and I've been working in Belfouche for almost 2 years now. So today what I'm going to talk about is just an overview of the programs that FSA has to offer. Right now we have 55 service centers across South Dakota that are just waiting to help you guys with anything that you need regarding our programs. So across the nation we have 2,100 county offices. We're there to help you with anything you need, like I said. If we had my PowerPoint up, we'd have a website where you can go to find your local office. It's farmers.gov/service center locator. And it'll come up with a map of the United States. You click on your state, and then you find your county, and it will list the phone number to contact and email addresses for the managers for that office. So what does FSA have to offer? We have 2 different categories. One side of our office is called the farm programs, and they offer disaster assistance, conservation programs, safety net, and risk management. And then the side I work on is the farm loans. So we offer financial assistance for farm ownership, operating loans, microloans, and loan guarantees. So first I'm going to talk about some of the farm programs. I'll be the first to admit that I know just enough to be dangerous when it comes to these. So if you have any specific questions, please go to that locator and find your local office and ask them so I don't steer you in the wrong direction. So I'm going to focus on our disaster programs. Can I have a show of hands of how many people raise livestock? Anyone? Okay, we got a couple. Any farmers? Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not covering things that don't apply to anyone. So the main disaster assistance programs that we have are the Livestock Forage Program, LFP, Livestock Indemnity Program, LIP, Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, Farm-Raised Fish, which is called ELAP, Emergency Compensation Program, which is ECP, and Non-Insurable Disaster Assistance Program, which is NAP. Lots of acronyms. So first off, we're going to talk about our LFP program. That's the Livestock Forage Program. And what this is we have the drought monitor. You've probably heard about that. So that comes out every Thursday. And depending on the level of drought is when this program becomes available. And what it is, it provides eligible producers that are suffering a grazing loss due to drought or fire. You can be compensated for trucking or if you have to haul water. Let's see if you can get this up. So depending on the qualifying drought, there's several different rates. So if you're at a D1 for so many months, D2, D3, the payment varies. Thank you. Good. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, here we are. So like I said, this is the drought monitor, and this was from last Thursday. I had to get this presentation in before the new one came out. As you can see, South Dakota, we're dry, and you probably all know that. The red would be a D3, and looks like we don't have any D4, which is good. But you have to be in a D3 for so many weeks to qualify for different programs. But this is what we go off of to see if you're eligible and determine the level of payment. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is LIP, Livestock Indemnity Program. This one provides livestock producers, if you have excessive death over your normal mortality and it's caused by an eligible adverse weather disease or attack. So what you have to do is you need to call your local office and notify them of a loss within 30 days. Let's see where I'm at here. And just to clarify, this livestock indemnity program is for production egg only. So if you have to be raising the livestock for some kind of production need, it can't be just a hobby, farm kind of thing. So here's a list of the eligible livestock. Most commonly around here we see cattle, honestly. I do have a couple chicken producers in the Butte County area. This is their first year, so they've never had to file notice of loss, but I have been talking to them about it. So each species has a different mortality rate. And here's just an example of livestock because that's what I'm used to working with. So in this example, Bill owns 100 cows. He calls in a notice of loss of 5 head from a weather disaster. The normal mortality is 2%. So when we're figuring out a payment, we subtract the 2 head, that would be a normal mortality rate, and he would get paid on 3 head through the LIP program. Next one is ELAP. This one, once again, usually we only see it for livestock, but I have seen it for honeybees. As far as I know, in this area, we don't have any farm-raised fish at this time. So ELAP provides assistance to eligible producers for losses due to disease, certain adverse weathers that aren't covered by LFP or LIP. Most often we see, covers feed transportation costs when grazing is low or hay is hard to find. In 2021, we had an extreme drought around here, so we had a lot of applicants that applied for ELAP for bringing hay in. And then we also had some where they opened it up to bring livestock to the forage, which was uncommon. And then we also do hauling water as well in drought areas. And for like honeybees, when I've seen it for honeybees, it's usually in a drought situation as well, when they don't have enough forage in hay fields, where the beekeepers bring them out, and we'll pay for them to feed the bees or ship them out early. The next one is the Emergency Conservation Program, ECP. This provides assistance to farmers and ranchers to repair farmlands caused by natural disasters. Most commonly we see this for waterline projects when we're in a drought, and we work with NRCS. They kind of are the ones that design the project, and then FSA does a cost share on it. So when we get in those situations where we have extreme drought for many, many weeks, that's when ECP kicks in. And more often than not, we have people that are putting in water lines, water tanks. Sometimes they do stockades to try and get better water flow for the livestock when natural sources of water dry up due to the drought. We also see this program used when there's a fire that goes through and we need to repair fences. That's another common one that we have in this area. Next one we have is Non-Insurable Disaster Assistance Program, or NAP. This one it provides like an insurance for those crops that federal crop insurance doesn't cover. It's designed to help people when a natural disaster causes a loss to production, loss of value, or it prevents you from planting in certain situations, and it has to be weather related. So most commonly, once again, around here, NAP is used for hay and grazing. If a drought causes a loss to hay production or grazing, people will come in and file notice of loss. Other crops that are eligible, we do some crops grown in controlled environments like mushrooms, specialty crops, honey, maple sap. Christmas trees are an example of a value loss crop, grapes, and then we may cover some vegetables. If you have any questions regarding if a crop you grow is eligible for NAP, your best bet is to call your local office and ask to talk to whoever's in charge of NAP, and they can look it up and see if that vegetable is eligible, because it just depends. So for NAP, there's a basic coverage level, and that covers 50% of the expected production and 55% of the average market price. You can do what's called buy-up, and that covers 65% of the production, and the maximum payment can be $125,000. The basic level costs $325 per crop. It will not exceed $825 per county. So once you've selected 3 crops, add no more at additional costs. And then the buy-up option, that depends on what type of crop you're purchasing buy-up for. So those premiums will differ. The service fee for beginning farmers is actually waived for the first 10 years of you being a beginning farmer. Make sure the number one thing you have to do with NAP is make sure that you're reporting your productions each year, because NAP is based on your average production. So they take your 3 production in a normal year, and that's what they determine is your average production, and that is what the loss is based off of. So the number one thing you got to do is make sure you're doing your crop report each year, so you have those yields in place when they're figuring out your NAP payment. So sign up for NAP for most crops is due by March 15th, so make sure you contact your office on that. Next, we have farm storage facility loans, FSFLs. These ones I actually work on in our office. They provide low interest financing for, typically what I do is grain bins is what I've had most of my requests for. But we can do grain dryers, augers, grain carts, wagons, baggage, circular fans. We can do cool storage. I've never done one of those, but that is one of the options. There's a whole list of different things we can do, but those are the most common ones that we offer through this. And the interest rates were really, really low. We were down to less than 1% on these. The terms can be up to 10 years, and there is a required down payment of 15%. If you're getting a loan that's under $50,000, that down payment is less. But these were really, really popular about 2 years ago when interest rates were really low. Now the interest rate on these is closer to about 4%, which is still less than like a commercial lender. So that's all I have for farm programs. This is where you can go to find out more. You can sign up to get our newsletter through email. You can choose what programs you're interested in getting newsletters about, and you'll get those monthly, or you'll get an alert when something changes. The farm program is always coming up with different programs depending on the situation. We had several that came out due to COVID that you could get paid on. We had market facility payments. Those were due to disruption in the supply chain. That was one that we had during COVID. We had CFAP payments is what they were called because the markets were down on certain crops that we paid on because of COVID. So we're always coming up with new programs. So to stay up to date on what they have going on, it's best to follow them on farmers.gov. So now we're going to get into more of my specialty, which is the farm loans. You know, we used to be known as the lender of last resorts back in the 80s. But now we're trying to transition to be a progressive lending is what we're wanting to be, and the lender of first opportunities is kind of what we're going for. So we're really targeting beginning farmers, female farmers is really what we're trying to get into. Like I said, we're the lender of new opportunities. Each year we target funds for beginning farmers. So what we have are direct loans. So we have 4 different kinds of direct loans. We have the farm ownership, the operating loan, the microloan, and the youth loan. And then we also have the emergency loan. And those are the different loan amounts, the maximum that you can borrow from each program. So I'm going to go into each type and kind of explain what's expected for those. The first one is the farm ownership loan. This one is up to $600,000. It's typically what we see it used for is purchasing land or a farm ranch, enlarging your existing farm. We do have some that do construction of new buildings, improvement to old farm buildings, and then paying closing costs. The repayment on these you can term it up to 40 years. Most people don't want to do that because that's a long time to have a loan. So what we do is when we get all the financial information, we get ratios, and that determines how far out we can go on these loans. We don't see very many that go 40 years. It's usually about 35, but we do have the option to go 40 years. Operating loans, this one you can borrow up to $400,000. Typically these are used for initial startup costs. Purchasing your first herd of cows, purchasing sheep, pigs, chickens, goats, whatever you want to do. If you're farming, buy that first tractor, you can come through us. We can also do what we call annual operating loans, and those are up to $400,000 as well. Those are for, your annual costs such as seed, fuel, fertilizer, labor. These are, like I said, we have the annual one, which can go out to 18 months, and then our operating, just the term ones, can be up to 7 years, and that just depends on the life of the security for that type of loan. Microloan, this one's only $50,000 is the max you can borrow, but the thing I like about this one is it's really good for those unique niche kind of farms. You don't have to provide as much information to us when you're first applying. The application is a lot more simple. We only take a lien on what you're purchasing instead of our other loans where we'll take a lien up to 150% on the collateral. So I really like these ones. I just actually did one the other day. They were buying goats and a skid steer, and they raised chickens for butcher. So I'm helping them out buying their goats, and they're getting the skid steer to help with, day-to-day stuff. And it was pretty slick. They were really surprised at how fast it went. So I really like these microloans. They're really good if you're just starting out on a small scale. This is another one that I really like, the youth loans. I actually had a youth loan when I was a kid, and that's what helped me pay for college. I bought 5 cows when I was about 12 years old and saved that money from each year's calf crop, and it helped me pay for school. So this one, you have to be between the age of 10 to 20. You can borrow up to $5,000, and you have to be participating in 4-H, FFA, or a similar organization. Like I said, I bought 5 cows at the time. Cows were cheap then. Now you could probably only buy 2 or 3. But I've also seen where I have kids that they just buy 1 pig for the year, they fatten them up, they show them at the 4-H show, and then they sell them, and that's how they pay their loan off. So they have a 1-year loan with us. But this one can go up to 7 years as well. Oh, another thing with the youth loans, you do have to have a project advisor. So typically what I see with that is a 4-H leader and FFA teacher has to sign off on the application stating that they'll help you with your project. And then the parent obviously has to sign off as well. But I think this is a really good way for young people to get involved in agriculture and to also find out what mom and dad are doing at the bank all the time. You know, they have to come up with a balance sheet, they have to come up with a cash flow and a plan of what they're planning on doing. So it's a really good introduction to finances. So this is the interest rates as of November 1st. These change monthly. Our operating loans are 4.375. Farm ownership is 4.5. Like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the FSFLs, interest rates have gone up quite a bit. I think probably a year ago we were at 1.75 for operating and maybe 2% for our farm ownership loans. But if you go to a local bank, it will be probably at least 2% higher from them. So now this one's a little different than what we've been talking about. We were talking about our direct loans, which is directly from FSA. These are called guaranteed loans, and this you go to your commercial lender, and they are the ones that do the loan. They apply on your behalf, and it's kind of like Uncle Sam is co-signing for you, is how I explain it to people. If there's a loss on the loan, FSA will pay up to 90% of that loss. So the bank, this is their way of getting a little extra cushion if the cash flow is tight or what the person's wanting to do is a little questionable. This gives them the extra cushion, like I said, to go ahead with it. And you can borrow up to $2,037,000 with this one. We have the operating loan and a real estate loan as well under this program. So like I mentioned earlier, we're trying to lend more to beginning farmers and what we call socially disadvantaged farmers. We target loan funds directly for them, so if we're having issues with funding where we don't have enough money left over, a beginning farmer or a socially disadvantaged farmer will get funded first. We haven't had that issue in probably 3 or 4 years. Congress has been giving us enough money to give out, I guess, to anyone that applies, so we haven't ran into that problem lately, but that is one of the benefits that we have for our beginning farmers and socially disadvantaged farmers. So what's a beginning farmer? A beginning farmer is considered someone that hasn't operated more than 10 years, and then you don't own more than 30% of your county average's acres. So I put an example of Butte County and Lawrence County because that's 2 of the counties I serve. So you can't own more than 613 acres in Butte or 180 in Lawrence to be considered a beginning farmer. So one benefit of being an SDA or a beginning farmer is that you qualify for our down payment program. And what this is a real estate loan. You can borrow up to 45% of the purchase price, up to $300,000. So you get 45% from FSA, you put 5% down, and then a bank does the other 50% or more, depending on how much the loan is. The bank's term is 30 years, FSA does 20 years, and our interest rate is 1.5%. I like this one too. Once again, it's a great way for a beginning farmer to get started. You're not buying that many acres with what this is, but you only have to have 5% cash down, which, with the way real estate prices are now, 5% is nothing compared to what a commercial lender wants. So I really like these ones. We only take a mortgage on the property, so you don't have to worry about us tying up all your livestock as well under that program. Last loan I'm going to talk about today is our joint financing. This is available to any producer. You don't have to be a beginning farmer. FSA will finance 50% of the purchase up to that $600,000, and then your commercial lender will do the other 50%. And our interest rate on this is always 2% less than the direct FO. So right now it's 2.5% because it can't be any lower than that. And this one as well can go up to 40 years. But in this situation, FSA will take a mortgage on the property, and then we'll take liens on livestock or machinery up to 150%. So like I've kind of been talking about a little bit of how we secure these loans, for a real estate loan, I've mentioned that we take a mortgage on the property, which is pretty obvious, and then like I said, up to 150%. So if you don't have equity in that land you're buying, we will take a lien on livestock, equipment, or personal items over 15. If you have like a boat that's over $15,000, we will take a lien on that. Some basic eligibility: you have to be a family farmer, can't be a commercial farmer. You have to have good credit history, met your obligations, be a U.S. citizen, be unable to obtain credit from commercial lenders. So I get these calls all the time, like, I just want your guys' interest rates. Well, we're a government program that is meant for people that can't get financing through a bank, so more times than not, beginning farmers, because they don't have the equity needed for a loan. So we are for those that can't get financing through a commercial bank, but I'm always willing to talk to you about what you're wanting to do. Specific eligibility for our operating loans, you have to have either sufficient education, training, or at least 1 year of experience in the last 5 to be eligible. Our microloans, if you participated in 4-H or FFA, then you don't have to have the 1 year experience when you're applying for a microloan. If you had a youth loan, that counts as a year's experience. And then all of our loans are restricted to a number of years. So beginning farmers can get loans through us for 10 years. Regular people that have been farming for over 10 years, they can get FSA loans up to 7 years. These are calendar years, so if you get a loan in 2020 and then another loan in 2022, that only counts for 2 out of your 10 to 7 years. For our real estate loans, farm ownership loans, you have to have operated at least 3 out of the 10 years. 2 of these years can be replaced if you have post-secondary education, you've completed a farm internship, you've successfully repaid an FSA youth loan. There are mentorship programs. As far as I know, we don't have any of those in South Dakota right now, but that can be replaced 1 of those years. And then just like our operating loans, farm ownership loans also have time restrictions. This one's a rolling clock, and it's up to 7 years. So if you get a loan in 2020 and you come back in 2027 and want another real estate loan, it's not going to happen. You ran out of time. So usually people only get 1 real estate loan from us just because they don't have the loan paid off in 7 years, so they don't come back and get another one. Like I mentioned earlier, you have to have some kind of experience when you're getting any loans from us. So what we call that is managerial ability. So how we determine that, if you have an education, we'll look at your transcript. If you have on-the-job training, we'll ask you to explain what you've all done. And everything is evaluated on a case-by-case basis. I have a lot of people that call, well, what if this, what if that? It's like, well, it really depends on what you're planning on doing, what kind of operation you want to have, how complex it's going to be to determine if you have the managerial ability. One thing that we do is we do pull a credit report when you apply for a loan. We don't look at the scores, but we do look at your repayment history. So my suggestion to you, if you're ever wanting to apply with FSA, pull a credit report on yourself, see what it looks like, because we don't want any surprises when you do apply with us, but that will be a conversation we'll have. So the first time you're meeting with us to receive a loan, have a general idea of what you're wanting to do. Don't come in wanting me to tell you what you should do. What type of operation do you want to have? What experience do you have? Is there a market for the product that you're wanting to produce? How much do you need? And try and have a cash flow kind of put together in your mind to know if it will actually be feasible. So all of our applications require pretty much the same basic forms. You know, we'll ask for 3-year production history, 3-year financial history, your tax returns. If you don't have any production history, we'll ask where you're getting your production projections from. Because we are the government, we do have quite a bit of paperwork. A lot of it's repetitive, but if you do come in, say, to my office and apply, I usually go through the whole application with someone, and I highlight exactly what I need, where you need to sign, what needs to be completed. And then, like I mentioned earlier, our marker loan is a lot less paperwork, and that's $50,000 loan is what that one was. So that one's a lot less paperwork than what our regular loans are. Some really important things when you are thinking about working with us, make sure you have a good record keeping system. Like I said, we do ask for a lot of information, and I do have a lot of people that come in and say, well, I've never kept track of that. Well, you better start, because we're going to ask for it every single year if you do get a loan for us, and if you ever apply, we'll always ask for it. It's the best way to know what you have going on your operation is if you keep track of all your records, your production, your costs. It makes doing taxes easier too if you keep track of that stuff month to month. And here's just a little cartoon of a banker asking someone to bring in their records, and he brings the barn door because that's where he keeps track of everything. So having a good tracking system is really important. I would not suggest using the barn door. So you can go to farmers.gov/newfarmers or /loans. We do have a new tool on there. That's the Farm Loan Discovery tool. What that is you'll press start, and then it'll ask you kind of what you're wanting to do, and it'll go through several different questions, and then it will suggest the loan that you're probably wanting to apply for. This is really new, and we actually went through it the other day, and I thought it was, at first we're like, oh no, just call the office, don't go to this website. But I think it's actually pretty good. It explains to you exactly what we'll ask for. And here's a little bit of an example of what it will look like when you go through the questions. And in this situation, this person was like, oh, your results is a farm operating microloan because you're wanting something less than $50,000. And then it will have a PDF where you can print our application for that. That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions? I know it was a lot of information, and you're probably really tired after that wonderful lunch. Any questions? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So for what you're talking about with the farm records, that's farm program. And you have to either lease or own land to sign up. So what you do is you come in and they'd bombard you with paperwork, honestly, is what the first step will be. And you'll get your maps. You'll have to bring in your lease if you don't own the land. If you own the land, a deed or something like that to prove that you own it. They'll pull you up on their systems. They'll have a map of your farm. You'll do probably an acreage reportage saying what you planted. If you own livestock, you can report losses at that time. They'll have you do what we call an AGI, which is an adjusted gross income, to make sure that you're not making more than, I think it's $950,000 or something like that, so to know if you're eligible for our programs. So if you go into the office, more than likely they'll be extremely friendly and help you go through all the paperwork. Any other questions? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Like a co-op kind of situation? Most of the time what we have are individuals. We do have entities that apply, like LLCs, corporations. As far as like a co-op, no. But each person within that co-op can more than likely apply. It'd be probably a good question for your local office to see what they have to say. They would know more than I would about that, but as far as I know, it's individuals and entities that usually come into our office. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So you talked about three crops. Are there limitations on what those crops are,
You're talking about NAP, the non-insurable crops. So what I meant by that is you pay for 3 crops, and anything over that is free. So you just pay up to $825 on your NAP, and then any crops after that don't have a fee. So you can do as many crops as you want. Yep. Any other questions? If not, I'll be here the rest of the day if you have more specific questions you want to come ask me about. Yeah, thank you guys for listening to me.
Thank you.